And I know this sounds horrible, but I'm very grateful that I don't have both my parents around right now because they were a huge burden.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to K.network, a safe space connecting you to the world around you, and most of all, connecting you to yourself. My name is Gemkhatsimalefa, and today we're going to be talking about dealing with grief, dealing with death, the loss of a loved one, with Bridget Pike. We did this video over Zoom, and I hope you enjoy it. Let's go. Tell me about the day that your parents passed away. Did they pass away at the same time? Was it the same day, or how did it work? What happened?
Uh, they didn't pass at the same time. It was actually 6 years apart.
Okay.
So I was in my matric year and I found out my dad had cancer. Well, first of all, we started to notice that there was this huge lump, like a golf ball, on his neck. And, I'd asked him, obviously, because he picked me up from boarding school. I'd be like, Dad, what is that thing on your neck? It just keeps growing. And he was like, no, the doctor just says, he actually lied to me. This is in retrospect, now that I think about it. He lied to me. He was like, no, I had some allergic reaction and they gave me the wrong medication. So this is the reaction to the medication. And I mean, I'm really not that naive or gullible, so I don't know why I believed my dad, but I did. But as it grew, the neck was now an extension of the shoulder, and I was like, okay, that's not a bad reaction. So I continued throughout my matric year. I was quite a busy bee in high school, international school of the arts. So outside of that as well, I was part of this girl group and all sorts of things. So I was pretty occupied. So I didn't pay too much mind to my dad, except for when I'd see him on Fridays when he picked me up and on Monday mornings when he dropped me back at school. But then once I matriculated, I'd been awarded a bursary to study. And I had selected varsity college in Sandton. So, I thought my dad was fine, to be honest. Like, there were no real conversations, except his neck started like turning purple. And I was like, geez, Dad, like, is that from the chemo? Yeah, sorry. Is that from the chemo? And he was like, yes, it is. That's why my neck is purple. So he was like, but don't worry, we're still going through the treatment. Everything is fine. So as I got into the routine of going to varsity, I used to take taxis, and I was walking up Benmore Road the one day. And my dad never called me. My dad and I were very close, but we had a very strange relationship, and I'll get into that more when I speak about my mom. So we just had this understanding and this unspoken truth amongst each other. So when he called me, I was shocked because I was usually the one who pick up the phone and be like, I need something, so I'm phoning you. And he phoned me, and I remember looking at my phone and going, what the hell, and I was walking, I just gotten off the taxi. And I was like, hi, Dad, what's wrong? It's Friday today, like, what? I'm on my way to varsity. No. He's like, no, I'm just at the doctor, and they want to speak to you. I said, but they want to speak to me now. Well, I'm about to go in class. Like, I'm literally late for class. He's like, no, they need to talk to you, Bridge. My dad had this very dark sense of humor. So he was like, well, I'm dying, and the doctors need to tell me. I remember just breaking down. I'm so dramatic. I remember breaking down. I literally fell to the floor and I was howling to the sky, like it was tears running down my face. I was 18, 19 years old. And I was just like, what? So that now, after about 5 minutes of howling, people were like, are you okay? Some of my friends were also on their way to hospital, like, Bridget, what the hell's wrong? And I was like, I don't know, my dad's dying. It was just chaotic. And then I remember being like, hello, and he had dropped the phone. So I tried calling him back. And then eventually, after about 15 minutes, when I had gotten to school and I sat down and I was like, now calm, I calmed down. He phones again and he's like, have you calmed down? He's like, you're so dramatic. that sort of happened. I kind of tried to stay at school. It didn't really work out because I was looking after my dad while he was sick. I moved in with him this same day, actually. I was like, I don't care what you say. And he was super upset with me because I'd been awarded this bursary. And I mean, not that he could afford to pay for school, but my dad was always like, if you're going to do things in life, you've got to do them for yourself. You know, if you want something, you've got to go and get it. So growing up, I said to him, I was like, watch, I will go to university and you won't pay for it. Like, trust me, which ended up happening. So when I sort of gave it up to look after him, he was just like, oh, he shouted, he actually swore at me. He was like, you bloody stupid. Um, why would you do that? And I was like, Dad, I'm 19 years old. I have the rest of my life to figure out the stuff. Like, schools are never going to close. I'll be able to study. Even if it's in my 30s or my whatever, I'll still be able to study. He was angry. I didn't care. And then one night, I had to rush him to the hospital. I didn't know how to drive. He was very thin, obviously from all the treatments. He was like a skeleton. So it wasn't that hard, but he was still a heavy man, tall man. I remember just dragging him, putting him in the car, and then getting to the hospital, and then wheeling him into ICU. And then getting there the next day to come and visit and check, and everything was fine. They found, his internet had gone out. But then I think 3-4 days later, they called me after I tried to go back to school. So I was on my way to school, and they called me and said, Bridget, your father's heart rate is dropping. You need to come to the hospital. And so when I got there, the curtain was already closed. Um, yeah, that was pretty much it. And then my dad left all obviously his estate and everything behind. And I was made executor of his estate. So it was a very stressful time for a 19-year-old. I didn't understand those things. I had other family members fighting with me. And yeah, that was my dad. So a lot of people don't know this about me, but I grew up in an orphanage, although I have two parents. My mom was someone who used narcotics and just abused substances, should I say. And it's just been an ongoing journey throughout the years. So that was, I grew up, as much as I had a dad and he was normal, I had this very eccentric, addictive mom. Because of obviously her own struggles, she took it out on us, basically. And then on top of that, I would be coming to school in, winter uniform instead of summer uniform because I was being beaten at home and I didn't want people to see. And my mom always threatened and said, if you tell anyone what's going on, they're going to take you away and you'll never see us again. And she's like, is that what you want? You never want to see your brother again? And so, I was sworn to this secrecy of sorts. But eventually, over time and with behavior and things like that, I think they noticed that, no, there's definitely some sort of abuse that's going on in the home. So we need to intervene. And that's when the Johannesburg Child Welfare got involved. And they slowly but surely started moving us around. And eventually they just moved me and they placed me into one place, which was the orphanage, which I grew up in, which is called St. Mary's Children's Home in Rosettenville. So yeah, mom is abusive behavior. This goes on for years and years and years. I stayed in the orphanage. When I finished primary school, they advised, because obviously with therapy and all sorts of exposure to the arts, and they just saw something in me and they were like, you need to go to the National School of the Arts because you're very talented. And I was just like, huh? What are you talking about? But anyway, I auditioned and I got in. And that's when I started breaking out of my shell. But I still had to come home on the weekends. And so, it's such a long story. But with her, it was still abuse. And as the years were getting worse, she was drinking a lot. She had stopped the drugs and things, and it really turned into alcohol abuse now. And then after my dad died, in those 6 years of me sort of bouncing around, she was getting worse. And eventually I moved back home to look after her. I remember it was weird because the week before she died, we had some really good conversations, and she had just told me all this information and things we never really spoke about when I was growing up, questions I could ask. And I remember I just got paid for a commercial or something that I'd done, but it was a lot of money. And I just felt like I had to spoil my mother. you know. I was never embarrassed of her despite everything. So I'd always take her everywhere with me, especially when I got older. And so this particular week, I decided, I'm going to go, you need a new wardrobe, you need new clothes. I took her to get her hair done. I even remember taking her to Melville to have drinks. And a week before she died, she was saying all these crazy things. So literally that week, I took her shopping. We went meat shopping and veg shopping and everything. I said, on Christmas Day, I'm going to cook a feast. You and I are going to spend Christmas together. But at 9 o'clock in the morning, I was at my boyfriend's house. She called me and said, please call the ambulance. I'm vomiting blood. And by the time I got here, the ambulance was already here. And she was hardly breathing. But in those 6 years, especially the last 2, she had been in and out of hospital so much that I was so used to the ambulance coming to fetch her or me dropping her off at the hospital that I didn't find it necessary to be with her every single time because I was also tired. I was like, you're killing yourself and you're not listening. Now I must sit at Helen Joseph for 20 hours before they admit you. I was like, Mom, I have to go work. I was the breadwinner at the time. So that particular day, I was just like, you've ruined Christmas. Like, I told you not to drink so that we could enjoy Christmas together. And lo and behold, you're in an ambulance now. The paramedics were like, Bridget, aren't you going to come with your mother? And I was like, oh, this is an everyday thing. Like, no, I'm not coming. So I'll see her tomorrow when I bring her things. And I was adamant. I was so adamant. And then the next morning, one of her friends called me and said, Bridget, your mother's not speaking. I said, oh, what do you mean? What are you talking about? She's got pipes everywhere. She's not talking. She's brain dead. I said, what the hell are you talking? Don't be I was so mad. I swore. I was like, I'm stupid. Like, what are you talking about? So obviously I got in my car. I rushed to Helen Joseph. I got there and they told her it was on life support. She was breathing by herself, but she had all the other machines and everything. And they're like, no, she's got brain damage because blood got into her lungs. So I was like, wow. So now she's having convulsions and she should have actually been dead that day. But she fought. Like, she was clinically, like scientifically, she was not supposed to be alive because her body was slowly poisoning itself. Her liver had ruptured. So all the things that are trying to, clean the toxins are just flowing through the blood. My mom literally from Christmas Day to the 29th, she waited for every single person of importance in her family who lives in South Africa to come and see her before she said goodbye. It was so crazy to me. And she actually opened her eyes and looked at me. And I remember saying to her, it's okay, because she obviously didn't understand that things were not connecting. And I remember saying to her, don't speak, it's okay. You've hurt your brain, that's why it's difficult, just relax. And literally 10, 20 minutes later, she was gone. Yeah, both of them died very painfully.
Do you regret not having gone on the 25th?
I will admit, when I did get to the hospital, I had that feeling. But then I also didn't blame myself because, you can't explain to someone who's never really experienced that sort of thing what it's like to see the people you love, despite them bringing you so much pain in your life. But my mom and I felt like our relationship had just started. She was just not, she never listened. I didn't regret anything. I just knew it was her time. And I knew that she was going through much more than that moment. Those 4 days were nothing for her. But for me, I don't regret it.
How do you think that both having lost your parents has created who you are now?
They made me strong by not doing the conventional things. If I had 2 normal parents right now who were literally like, do your homework, here's your lunch, make sure. My parents let us do whatever the hell we wanted to, not because they didn't care, but because it's what the situation was. We also learned this independence, like we grew up so fast, I don't think they knew that they were doing that because they were so caught up in their own mess. I think that's what I mean, is that not everyone is built to be a parent, but they were great parents for teaching the things that I suppose normal people don't get to experience until they're out on their own. And not to say that that's wrong or right, because there are a lot of things that I wish about my childhood that were different, you know. Um, but I'm also very grateful for my childhood because they really did make me who I am. Everything they didn't give me, I want to give to people and to my children and the ones I love. Growing up, a lot of people would ask me like, how are you even doing this, Bridget? And my one thing was always, you always have choices. Like you always, no matter what, there's always a choice between this or that. Even if this or that is difficult, but there's always a choice, right? And my choice was, one day I will have full control of my life and I'll be able to do whatever I want with it. So I just have to be patient and build towards that. And then once I'm out of it, everything will be okay. And I know this sounds horrible, but I'm very grateful that I don't have both my parents around right now because they were a huge burden in a lot of respects. And their problems became our problems. Whereas now, with everything I've gone through with them, I'm able to go, okay, but now it's my turn. What can I do? And how am I going to not continue this cycle? Because if I ever have kids, I never want them to have to experience any of that. They shouldn't even know about that sort of life. It should be like, my life is good. Shit, we live it, you know?